and then we will sit together. So here we are. We're in the last week of our reflections on the second precept. Refrain from taking that which is not given. And it's funny. I thought that I learned about this precept a long time ago when I was about 14. And I was picked up for shoplifting. I was taking an album from a department store. Not so smart. And my excuse is that my brain probably was not fully developed by that point in time. But I was really lucky that the store didn't press any charges. Instead, the security people brought me into a back room and made me call my parents to tell them what I had done. And that was the best lesson I could have been given, because I learned quickly and clearly that I would not steal again. It was black and white in my mind. But in our reflections over the past weeks, it's so clear that practicing with this precept is not black and white, and that it's about a lot more than just refraining from stealing. There are laws in our communities that guide our ethical behavior, and they're really important. But this precept really points us towards our internal experience and really asks us to be honest, both within ourselves and in our relationships with others, recognizing the impact that our actions have on others. Refrain from taking what's not given. I also like to think of the flip side of this precept. Open to receive what is given. So just for a moment, imagine you're at a restaurant and you're walking through a long buffet line filled with all sorts of yummy things. You walk down the line, filling your plate with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. That looks so good, and so does that, until your plate is heaped a bit higher than you had planned. There's no more room on the plate, but there are a few more items on the buffet that you really want. What does that feel like? For me, walking through a buffet line immediately evokes a feeling of tightness and wanting. Taking a little more of this or this, there's a tinge of greed there. I want to be sure I get my money's worth and try each thing, even if it's more than I'm hungry for. Maybe even if it means there may not be enough for someone else later in the line. So it's not that the food isn't offered, but that my attitude is one of taking, of maybe a little selfishness and wanting all I can get. And it's not really a pleasant feeling. And now imagine that you're at a friend's house for dinner and your host has prepared and served a wonderful, tasty plate of food to you. What does that feel like? Maybe you feel the generosity of the offering. You receive it. You might say thank you and feel some gratitude or appreciation. And that grabby feeling that was present in the buffet line isn't present. And your heart is softened. This is what this precept is about. Food is always such an easy example of our wanting mind. But this precept and this dynamic pervades our relationships. It's our relationship with ourselves, relationship with others, and with the earth. And if we're attuned to it, we can feel it inside. Think about all the ways we take things that may or may not have been given to us. We've talked about a lot of those things over the past month. And we notice how tinges of greed or wanting motivate our desire to take what's not given. And this is the energy of mind that Catherine spoke to last week. One of the classic examples of this is office supplies, though we don't all work in offices now. But when we did, the office supplies that we bring to be used at home, pad of paper, a pen. I know I've done this and it seems benign, but were they offered? Or what would you do if a bill arrived and one of the items that you had purchased wasn't included? Would you tell the cashier and redo the bill, or just think that you got away with something? It wasn't any fault of your own, so are you blameless? Just recently, I was in a public building and I went to the restroom where they had paper towels to dry my hands after washing. The towels were offered. But at what point was I taking more than was being offered? Did I really need to use 2 or 3 sheets when one would have been enough? And to probe just a little bit deeper, who am I taking from? Am I taking from the establishment where the restroom was, or am I taking from the earth? I could go on and on. These situations arise in our day-to-day lives all the time. And some of them are nuanced. None of them really seem like big deals or would be considered outright stealing. But as we practice with this precept, we become a bit more sensitive to the subtleties. We can feel them inside. What is skillful? Or what is exploitive? It's an inquiry for us. And this precept doesn't only apply to material items. Think about interpersonal situations when we take someone's attention, take someone's affection, take up space, take advantage of someone or something, take over. So what's so challenging is that our relationships and our interactions change from moment to moment. Maybe you're relaying a good story and your friend is interested, engaged, and giving you their attention. It feels good to be seen and heard, so you relax into the story and you begin to embellish it a bit, repeating yourself, going into more detail, dominating the conversation. And there's a shift. And at some point, you might begin to be taking up space and attention that hasn't been given. It's so challenging, isn't it? And it really requires us to be mindful, both of our own internal dynamics and desires, and also mindful and sensitive to the other. This practice is relational. Maybe it means reading body language of another as well as our internal knowing, and then finding a new balance. These tendencies towards wanting to take what hasn't been given are deeply rooted, and unearthing them, noticing them in these more subtle ways, is really humbling. We have to remind ourselves over and over that this precept is a training, and it's helping us, guiding us away from the tightness of wanting, and it's untangling our conditioning. And that happens over time with reminders and practice. And now I want to talk just a little bit about the flip side, about receiving. Receiving that which is given also is a practice. It's a practice of allowing and welcoming. It's hard to trust that everything will be okay, that we'll get what we need if we don't take it. But this precept is suggesting just that we settle back and receive what is offered to us. You've heard our words. Even on the cushion, we sometimes say, allow and welcome whatever arises, or receive the breath. We all know that it's not easy to let that next moment unfold and just receive whatever it offers. But we may also know that we can find a sense of ease there. Off the cushion as well, we can lean a bit more into receiving. Maybe it's receiving the kindness that we're learning to offer ourselves. Or maybe it's what's offered to us by friends. Maybe it's what's offered from the earth. Looking at the precept in this way, this is the ground for gratitude to arise. Gratitude for all that's been given to us. So for a moment, juxtapose the image of the buffet that I spoke of earlier with an image of monks on their alms walks, carrying an empty bowl to gather their food for the day. The monks don't buy or cook their food, and they depend fully on others for that. This is a practice of receiving whatever is offered by the lay people in whatever amount, with no preferences. Really resting in the generosity of the offering. Sometimes I bring to mind that image of the empty bowl just to remind me to appreciate what's given. So if we really live into this precept, we refrain from taking that which is not given, we might find that we receive all we need. We might find that our empty bowls have been filled, that having enough is a feast. I just love that. I only recently heard it, but it totally resonates with me. And I really was working hard to find a way to include it in this talk because it says so much with so few words. So often we think of enough as a restraint, as a holding back from too much, but it doesn't have to be. As my wants and desires diminish, I can relax more into realizing that I have enough, and enough is a feast. So thank you all for being here, for your attention. And now let's switch gears, bring our attention gently into our bodies so that we can begin our practice together. And really noticing, what is it today, right now, that your body needs in order to be comfortable, to be relaxed, to be alert for these next 20 minutes or so as we sit. And really take the time. Getting stretching, opening to the obvious places and those places that maybe not quite as obvious, but that make a difference. And when you're ready, bring yourself slowly into stillness, into a comfortable posture. Alert, yet relaxed. Really feeling your place in this moment, in this place. Settling. Noticing that settling is a process. It's motivated by that intention to just be present. And as body settles, let the heart, mind follow. Inviting your attention inside, and really inquiring, what's it like in here today, right now? Noticing that you don't need it to be any different. That our practice is to welcome whatever is present. Receiving that experience openly. Notice your mind. If there is any sense of wanting things to be other than they are. And if so, try to bring yourself back to that place of allowing. Perhaps a sense of contentment with what is present now in your experience. This is enough. Remembering again to settle, soften, receive. In the last moments of the practice today, I invite you to open up your attention to the Sangha that's sitting with you and feel the support of sitting together in community. And just take in that we all have created this together. And feel the energy of the support, perhaps some gratitude, both for ourselves and for each other. So much easier to do together, to do this practice together than to do it alone.